Amanda, I want to say it's a pleasure to have you come on here. I know we didn't get a chance to meet at Podfest, but we connected thereafter and we spoke for probably a good hour or so about just podcasting pretty much, and that was fun. It's sometimes it's interesting because sometimes us podcasters don't really talk to other podcasters about podcasting, you know what I mean? So, and maybe we could talk a little bit about that as well as we go, down your journey here. But why don't you just share with everybody, who is Amanda and what you're doing today, and then we can see how you got to where you are.
Okay, sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I know we did get connected after the fact, but we did have a really great conversation. But who is Amanda? That is such an interesting question. Some of my titles: I'm a paralegal. I also host a podcast. I'm a breathwork facilitator. I am really into the gym. I'm into fitness. I love working out, moving my body. And I just love helping people look at the world differently, because I'm someone who for so often in my life complained about every little nuance. And then I just shifted and I was like, life's short. Everybody tells me all the time how young I am, and I'm only 27. And I hear all the time, because I'm friends with a lot of older and more mature people, so I hear all the time how I'm so young. But I'm not getting any younger, and it's like life's short. So why stress over the small things? And I just want to help people realize that. That's even one of the things that stemmed my starting of the podcast. Yeah.
That's great. So what got you the shift?
There's been a few different instances in my life. I did different plant medicines that opened my eyes a little bit, and just different experiences with loss in my life, and then just looking at things from different perspectives over time. As I've gone through different things, as I've lost different things, you look at the world differently. And you realize, like, you don't know what tomorrow brings. I'm not guaranteed to wake up tomorrow. So, like, even had a really bad car accident scare once, and it's like, yeah, I'm young, but freak things happen all the time. I had close friends of mine pass away that I graduated high school with, and it's just been all these different little instances here and there, and it's like, man, it's time to wake up and realize, like, yeah, you're 27, but you're not guaranteed to live to your 80 just because you're healthy and you go to the gym. There's been little different instances that's been like, oh shit, like, my super healthy grandfather got diagnosed with bladder cancer and he's okay now, but it's just different little instances on and off throughout my life that's been like, Amanda, life's short. Why are you bitching about this little inconvenience that's not going to matter in 5 months from now?
Yeah, life is short. So, for me, it sounds like you too. I start to focus on the present more, and not worry about the past or the future as much. So, like, now we're present, right? This is the moment. So you said you lost some friends and stuff along the way. What would you say, what age would that be? And then, how long did it take you before you did cope and then change your mindset there?
So one of my really, really good friends passed away when I was in high school, actually, from colon cancer. And she had a really positive outlook on life and never looked at it negatively. Like, everybody was always so worried, and she just always had such a positive outlook. And it wasn't directly after that. That kind of helped shift me a little bit, but it probably wasn't. It was so it was after that. I'd say that was my junior year of high school. Then I think the biggest shift was an experience in a romantic relationship of mine. And I prioritize so much of my work over this relationship. And that was a big reason, even part of it, like, started to deteriorate because I was so focused on career and not focused on people within my life. And that was an eye opener for me. That was a big, like, what are you doing? And it was right after that I did ayahuasca. And then I was even more so like, I'm missing out on family events. I'm missing out on small little things. And it's like, because I'm working, I'm doing whatever professional development, something for myself. I'm attending this event. I'm going to this. And it's like, I'm looking back on things and I'm not attending it. And it was just a reality check for me. I can't remember what the specific event was, but there were pictures on Facebook with a bunch of my family members, and I was like the only one that wasn't in any of the photos. Even the people that don't go, even the cousins of mine that, like, you don't see at, like, most family gatherings, they were there, and Manders wasn't there. And it was just kind of looking back to me like, I'm not super close with some of my family, but at the end of the day, like, I only have so much family, and I'm not getting any younger again. That same aspect. So it's like the people who actually show up for me and give a fuck about me and are there for me, I'm gonna take the time to do the same. There's got to be the balance between developing myself as well as not losing relationships within my, not even losing, but not jeopardizing relationships within my life. And I actually even did an astrology birth chart reading. I don't know if you're into astrology or know anything about that, but she even told me, like, that is an issue with me in a lot of my relationships, whether it's romantic, whether it's platonic, that I am too focused, and sometimes my disciplined nature jeopardizes relationships of mine. And the fact that, like, I don't ask for help. I try to do it all myself. So I've been reflecting a lot and becoming much more aware.
And it's going through those hard times and coming out and looking on the other side of it that, that's how you change, right? If you want to, right?
Yeah.
It sounded like you wanted to, and they got that spark and it took off. So, friends and family come up sometimes, when I talk to people. So what are your thoughts on that? I know you shared a little bit about that, but, and what I mean by that is, how often do you select to hang around those friends, those family members that you probably shouldn't be hanging around all the time because you want to go here and they're down here, right?
So I'm not someone that spends time with majority of my family or most. I've got maybe 2-3 friends that I see pretty kind of regularly, but besides that, I kind of stay to myself. I'm just working, hustling, podcasting, breathing, training, grinding. Kind of even why I mentioned finding that balance between, like, not jeopardizing per se some of my relationships. Even like my family, all of them live 2 hours away from me, so it's a little bit of a trip for me to see any of them. But I wouldn't say I necessarily, like, struggle with spending time with people I shouldn't. Yeah.
So you're doing a lot, right? I mean, what is what is the favorite thing that you're doing right now that really gets you excited and motivated?
My favorite thing?
Yeah.
Breathwork.
Breathwork. Can you dive into that a little bit?
So it's similar to meditation, but honestly, it's easier than meditation, I would say, and a lot of us say, because meditation, it's designed to help you quiet the mind. You're supposed to be sitting still, that's not what breathwork is. There's loud music playing. It's deep diaphragmatic breathing. It's a conscious, connected breath, and you're really tapping in to your subconscious. And it really helps me let go of so much stuff I've been holding on to that I didn't even realize.
And so what got you started to do breath work?
So the first time I did it was actually at the ayahuasca ceremony, and it was pretty intense. I stepped away from it actually after that. And a good friend of mine that I did yoga with, I had gone to different events with, actually one of the 3 that I was thinking of that I spend time with, had now got certified in this thing called Breathwork Detox. And she's like, you got to try this. You got to try this. I was like, yeah, I'll try it sometime. Kind of like just brushing her off, honestly. And I was literally thinking, I know how to fucking breathe. I'm not going to this. Whatever. Like, I'm that friend that I don't go to stuff. You invite me. I'm not really going. I might tell you I'm going to go. I'm probably not going to go. I'm doing my own thing. I'm hustling. The next thing no, I'm not going. So now October, she starts, you should come. You go to yoga all the time. I go to yoga randomly by myself last minute. We'll do that sometime. January rolls around, and it was actually the anniversary of my grandma's passing, and she was hosting an event, a breathwork session, and I was like, I just don't feel like sitting home tonight, wallowing in my pity. You know what? I'm just going to go. So I go, and by the end of the session, I went into it in kind of a melancholy state. I was focusing on the grief. I was thinking about my grandma. And then when I left there, I was thinking so much about the gratitude and how I was appreciative of her, how I was grateful I lived with her, because my whole life, up until she passed, I lived with her. And my head was just thinking of all the different ways I was grateful for what I got to experience with her, how I got more time with her than most people get with their grandparents, because she practically raised me. I was with her 24/7, except for when I was in school for 15 years. So my head was just thinking of all these different really positive things. And I was like, holy shit, this breathwork shit is pretty cool. Like, wow, okay. And I was fascinated by it. So fast forward a week later, I went to her next session again. And she was like, Amanda, if you love it this much, like, she gets certified. I didn't even know what she meant. I was like, it's certified in what? Like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, I just feel great. I don't even know what's happening now. And she's like, certified in breathwork. So fast forward, I reached out to the person, like the manager, contacted her, did the research, and signed up. Then I went to Utah, got certified in breathwork, and that was a year ago now, actually, that I got certified. And here we are.
That's great. And so you're helping others with breathwork then, too?
Yep.
Okay. And do you do that like virtually, or is it in person?
Both. Yep.
So what's like a session like?
So I have a playlist that's playing. It's pretty loud music, and I'm speaking throughout it while you are lying there doing this deep diaphragmatic breathing. Your mouth's open the whole time, and it's tapping into your subconscious.
Okay. And so who would you recommend somebody to do this kind of breath work? Can you hear me?
I can now. Sorry, I didn't before.
So who would you recommend to use this breath work?
Honestly, I'd say if you're struggling with confidence, if you're struggling to get over something in your life, whether that's grief, a loss, maybe something that was said to you, anybody that fits.
Yeah. And how often do you do it?
I do it every day.
Every day. For how long would you do it for?
You can do it for as short as 15 minutes and as long as like an hour.
Okay. And you're going to keep on doing this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it helped you, right? It got you this far.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else you do to try to get over any kind of thoughts you had from the past besides the breath work?
I'd say journaling.
journaling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any thoughts you're having about it, feelings you're having about it, whatever's coming up, even if it doesn't make sense, like whatever, if there's a situation, if something's coming to your head, even if you don't understand why it's coming to your head, write about it. Like getting it out, even talking to yourself, which might sound really crazy, but I've done it myself. But getting it out of your body physically, like it does something. Like I know I'm going to sound woo-woo, but whether it's writing it is great, talking it, even if you don't have somebody to talk to. That's why I said like talking to yourself, but not letting it sit inside you, because I do believe it affects us more when we let it stay in the body.
You're right. Yeah, your mind goes in circles and you keep on thinking all these things that will not happen whatsoever. I never really dove deep into journaling. I tried, but it never like took off. So I might sporadically show up like every once in a while. But some people I've interviewed, actually one person I can remember, she wrote on one side like everything she could think of. And then like on the other side, she would answer herself. And it sounded interesting, and she described it more than what I can now, but that was different. So, I mean, that's an option for other people too, if they don't, if they think journaling's just like, what is this thing, right? And so, I mean, do you do that every day too?
I wouldn't say every day. No.
Yeah. Did you start doing that? You started doing that before the breathwork then?
Yeah, I've journaled on and off.
Okay. And besides like talking to yourself, you do podcasting, so you talk to a lot of other people.
Yes, I do. Yeah. I do. I just love to talk. I love to talk. I have a podcast, so if I'm not talking to somebody, I'm talking to myself.
That's all right. Yeah, I could talk to the wall over there. It won't talk back to me, but yeah. So I mean, what's your journey like in podcasting? Because I know. I think we're in the Podfest group or whatever prior to it, and I saw like you're posting like you were all excited and stuff, and then that was it. Like I never even ran into you, and then obviously afterwards, right? But so explain, what happened there? How did you say, hey, I'm going to try podcasting? Why Podfest? I'm curious.
So I actually had never even thought about starting a podcast. It wasn't actually until I went and got certified in breathwork that the head trainer, Curtis Lee Thomas, had said to me about halfway through the training, he was like, Manders, you should start a podcast. I think it was because I did not stop talking throughout the training. Like I always had something to say, to the point where even if I didn't have a question, I would have a comment. He would explain something, and I'd raise my hand and be like, so this is why he's right about this. And it didn't hit me till the end when his back was turned one day and he was like, now before I let Manders speak, does anybody have a question? And I was like, oh, fuck. Maybe I was a little like too much. But so he said that to me, and now I really respected this guy. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to figure this out. Now, I've always been a talker. So like prior to this, I had used to post on and off different videos, like on my Snapchat story, on my Instagram story, just talking about different shit. I thought it was random shit. One of my friends was like, you're like a motivational speaker. I'm like, bitch, no, I'm not. Like, I don't even know what I'm saying. She's like, you should like say that, share this with more people. Like, even if people don't like you, they should hear this. I'm like, how the hell do you expect me to share that with? Like, what does that mean? Okay. Well, so then when I went and did breathwork, Curtis had said that to me. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to start a podcast. Now, that same day, I started researching, how do you start a podcast? And I was so fucking confused. So I have one friend who happened to have a podcast. So I sent him a text and I was like, listen, I'm in Utah right now, but I'm going to start a podcast. I'm thinking it's going to be about mindset. I have no idea how to do this, but I know you have one, so I need some help. And he walked me through the whole thing once I was back, and I started Manders Mindset. So that's kind of how it developed. And Podfest, I actually didn't even know was a thing right away until I got an email from Buzzsprout, which is where I host my podcast. And at first they told me that Podfest was coming. I'm like, what the hell is this? I don't even know what this is. Then imposter syndrome kind of kicked in because I was like, I'm not spending money to pay for a podcasting event. I'm too new of a podcaster. That's not happening. So fast forward a little bit, Buzzsprout sends another email. They're like, we want to send you to Podfest. I'm like, yo, this is too good to be true. So naturally, I'm like, I'm going to apply for this thing to see, because there's no way. This is too good to be true. So I apply for it. Now, a decent amount of time passes, long enough so I forget about this. I think it's not happening. It's not even in my head. Then I get an email from Buzzsprout, and they're like, you're going to Podfest. And I was like, oh, fuck. Podfest is in like 2 weeks. It's in Orlando, Florida. I don't have a hotel room. I don't have a ticket. I have no plan for this. Oh gosh. Okay. So I went to Podfest, and it was amazing. I had a blast. I loved it. But yeah, that's kind of the short version of the podcast journey.
Yeah. So what did you take away from the Podfest?
What did I take away? Biggest thing I would say I took away was I attended different sessions with different speakers, and one of the speakers emphasized how we all have all these different things we want to do. There's this huge to-do list and all the things you want to do. But to find whatever causes you the most friction or the most stress, whatever that one thing is that you hate the most, that is the hardest for you, and tackle that. Tackle that first, because that'll make your life the most easiest by reducing that friction. Even if you don't eliminate it, it's going to be lessened, and everything else is not as bad for you. So whatever is the hardest, start to find a way to reduce that.
That's great. And that's not just for podcasting, that's for everything.
Yeah. No, it literally is. It literally is. And it's such a great point though, like if you think about it, what is causing you the biggest issue? So if you pinpoint what's causing you the biggest issue, even if you can't fully eliminate the issue, what are some ways that you can make the issue more manageable?
Right. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Systems, processes. Yeah. That's great. So you went to Podfest. I mean, so has anything changed since then? I mean, because you were podcasting before, right? And then.
Yes, I was. Yep.
So then after that, did you change something that you were doing?
Did I change something? So I would say, well, I've gotten new equipment post then. I'm better at interviewing. I would definitely say I'm better at interviewing, and I'm better at speaking as a whole. I've changed. There has been things I've changed. I don't know if it's necessarily specifically because of Podfest, but stuff that has changed post that. But I would say it's just given me the ability to look at it again, at just how to make something I'm already doing simpler and easier on me, like it doesn't have to be hard. I've tended to be someone that's done things like the longest way to do them, and not even necessarily intentionally, but I just have in a lot of different ways. And sometimes it doesn't need to be so complex. Certain things. Even like just different systems I was doing previously. Like, for example, and it even comes to setting like boundaries, which kind of sounds weird in terms of podcasting, but I was like drowning myself prior to podcast in terms of podcasting, because now I was very lenient even in terms of with the guests, in terms of if they wanted me to release it in 2 weeks, I was making sure I was able to release it in 2 weeks from then, even if I wasn't necessarily planning on releasing it right then. like, I'll never forget, it was Christmas Eve, and I was up super late, all hours of the night, finishing editing a podcast because I had told my guests they would be out on Christmas morning. And I'll never forget, Alex Sansolipo at Podfest had said to me, well, is this burning you out? Because if it's not, like, continue it. And I was like, no, I'm drowning. And he's like, then why are you doing this? And I was like, I don't know. So, like, I came up with a system for things, like a calendar, which seems so freaking basic, but it's like, I'm not, like, just because the guest wants me to record 3 days from now, just because technically I don't have something at this specific time, doesn't mean I need to kill myself, not literally, but like squeeze it in and make it work. No, here's my calendar. You can get on the schedule and we'll make it work. Same thing with the guy who I released on Christmas Day. Like, I recorded it like 4 days prior. Here I am the week before Christmas, like rushing around with all these other festivities as well, and killing myself practically because I promised this guy the podcast would be released. Like, what, Yeah. So it, like, setting the boundary,
It's your show. Yeah. And I think you got that now.
Yeah, it took me a little bit.
Yeah, it does take a little bit because you're excited. You want people to come on, and I don't know about you, but people are swarming to go on a podcast. You know what I mean? They're everywhere. So, if it doesn't work for that person, it'll work for somebody else, and yeah, the problem I have is people in the UK because it's tough with our time zones. So it's like, okay, maybe I can vent a little bit on a Saturday or something. Depends on, if we have a good interaction like this, just for a couple minutes talking or something, and then we go, let's do an episode, then yeah, I would probably consider doing it, especially if there's something great that they want to share. But yeah, that is tough. You have to work around different things sometimes. You find it. You found it. I mean, so how long have you been doing it for? Almost a year?
Next month will be a year.
Next month will be a year. So you're going to have a cake and everything and throw a party?
I should.
That's good. So episode, where you at?
Like almost at 70.
Okay. That's good. So you do one a week?
For a while I did 2, but we're back to 1. Occasionally here and there I do 2.
Because you were burning yourself out, right? Is that it? Yeah, right. I know. It does that. So yeah, so I had a huge backlog, 2 of them recorded, right? And if I did one every week, I'm good till, I don't know, October or something, I think. But if I have the opportunity, I'll try and push out a few here and there. Yeah, so I mean, just don't kill yourself. You have a day off and you're tired of talking to yourself, you can work on it and get one out. But I mean, like, you share like the technical side of it, like how you change your schedule and everything. But you as a person, as a podcaster, what has podcasting done to you? How has it changed you?
So I'd say it's changed me in a few ways. I learned a lot, and I am learning a lot, even just about different modalities that exist, different ways to think about life, think about the world around me, think about myself. It's changed the way I even speak, because I've really learned even more so the power of my words, the power of my thoughts, because I've had that emphasized to me by so many guests. And yeah, I've learned so much from the guests. Like, all the things they shared with me, I blown away.
Yeah. And doing this, like, you're on mine right now. It's totally flipped for you, because you usually have people on yours, right? I don't know how many times you've been on others, but I was on 2 of them this week, and it's like totally different, because you're like, oh, I get to talk, yeah, right. It is different, and it's fun,
Yeah.
You have a good experience with it. So, I mean, how can people connect with you? Obviously, we know you have a podcast. You can share the name of that too. And, how can we connect with you for breathwork or anything else that you have going on?
They can find me on Instagram. Instagram is The Breathing Goddess, or the podcast is Mandu's Mindset. You can also find my link tree. That's The Breathing Goddess as well.
Okay, great. And so I ask everybody this one question. I don't know if you heard it or not through other episodes, but what are 3 key things you've learned and used along your journey?
3 key things?
Yes.
3 key things. Like tangible things?
It's things. I made a bank so that you get to decide whatever that is to you. I've gotten some great answers. So
that have been of value to me, you said.
yeah. Well, what have you used to help you along your journey in life?
I'd say breathwork, for one. I'd say pausing, for 2, because so often in my life, and so many of us are like constantly on the go, like making this quick decision, and so many of them are unconscious, and we don't even realize why we're doing so much of what we're doing. So like literally like pausing before I do something, before I send a text, before I say something, before I make a decision, has been like fundamentally like life-changing. And the third thing, and it's helped me that's a hard question, because my mind keeps going like, do I want to, is it like tangible things like I do? Or should it be like things to like think about? It's one more. One more. I'm thinking.
I might ask for another one after this. Oh.
Okay, I got it. Realizing that not every single day is going to be the same. Now, I'm going to preface this with, because at one point in my life, for a while, I was so go with the flow. Now, this was before I lost weight, before I got into fitness, meditating, breathwork, all that. So go with the flow, had no routine. Fast forward, eventually I got into routine. I had a morning routine, and I built on it for so long, and it got to the point where I didn't even realize it was about 3.5 hours, and I was so rigid with it. And it wasn't until there was a day when I was traveling and I was fully in the car for the whole day, so I was unable to physically do some of this morning routine. And it ruined my day. It ruined my partner's day at the time. Like, I gave him the silent treatment, and it was a whole thing. And it was just, and one of my friends said to me, Amanda, you got to realize not every single day is the same. So why does every single day have to look the same? And like a light bulb went off in me, and I was like, just because this one day, like I didn't do things I normally do, it's not just for the hell of it that I didn't do it. So, no, that's not saying to make excuses, but to give yourself grace and, realize that every day is going to look different, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't beat yourself up about stuff like that. And, and I have a morning routine too. Not as long as yours, but
it's not that long anymore.
Okay. All right, we cut back a little bit. All right, you guys, yeah. But it throws you off because you get in that routine, and you're like, this is what gets my day going again. And it helps, right? For people that do enjoy it, it does help. And so, yeah, you're like, why am I off today? And it's exactly because you didn't do what you're used to doing sometimes. Or you might sleep in, right? You used to get up early, and now you're sleeping in. Why? Even though you need it, things change. But No, this is great. And you figure it out. You know three key things now that you can share with somebody else. And I appreciate you coming on, and I'm glad we were able to connect. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.